Welcome to the Only Football channel. My name is Kyle. Happy Thursday. Normally don't hop on this late, but I was feeling a little sick, a little nauseous, and I was going to wait 30 minutes and see if it passed. And I was feeling better, feeling good enough to definitely jump in. Just had to eat some pretzels. Um, all right. So the NFL has released something today. Um, it's not super, breaking news, but it's just worthy of talking about. And this is the NFL's top offenses. Um, Obviously, the NFL right now, as far as offensive goes, the league is kind of trending towards that. It is not unusual to have more teams that are strong offensively and less teams that are strong defensively. So the NFL kind of did their own analysis of it, and they went through their top 10. And I also found ProFootballNetwork.com has their own list. I'm going to see how they compare, and we'll see what I agree with and what I don't. But one thing I did want to do is I wanted to look up last year's offensive stats as far as these 10 teams go to see where they compare. Now, there is definitely no doubt that Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. And then the Bengals are pretty good too. Bengals last season, when it comes to yards per game, eighth. They were eighth. Um, Only 1 yard behind Minnesota. Minnesota, I mean, when you really break it down, Justin Jefferson is the reason Minnesota's this high. And then Miami was right after them. Could you imagine if Miami would have been able to keep Tua the entire year? And this isn't normally an argument that you'll hear me make because I'm not a huge Tua guy. I like the guy, and I think that the Dolphins were definitely a good offense, but for whatever reason last year, I just never really believed. Even when they beat Buffalo, I thought, no, it was super hot. And then when they beat the Ravens, I was like, the Ravens just took their foot off the gas. They were getting smoked. But it did show that they can come back in some of these games. And Bill, what's going on? Late night. No, I was just saying that I was feeling sick. I was feeling a little nauseous, and I wanted to give it a little bit of time to see if it would pass, and it did. So, yeah. So I was feeling better, so I wanted to show up. And the Miami Dolphins had a better offense last year than the Bengals and the Vikings. They had 364 yards per game. And sometimes, and I've mentioned this before, but when we get used to teams just being kind of mediocre for a long stretch of time, it's hard for us to actually give them the credit. It feels like they have to do even more to actually prove that they belong to be in that spot. And Miami just hasn't really been that great in any of the seasons that I've been watching football. And if they've made the playoffs one or two times, it wasn't memorable. I'll actually pull that up right now. Miami playoffs last 10 years. Let's see. Miami Dolphins playoff history is right here. Obviously, they went to the playoffs last year. So, but I wanted to see, because I'm saying, like, basically, I just haven't really, especially when the season first started, like they beat Buffalo, they beat the Ravens, they were winning their games, but it almost felt like some of their other teams were losing the games instead. And that's what anybody would say, that's taking credit away from somebody. And I think that's a little bit what I was doing. And I go on here. Okay, here's their playoff history. They have 2022, they lost against the Bills. They almost won that game, by the way, with a third string quarterback. Then 2017, they made it to the wild card round and lost. So, okay, so that's what, 7 years ago now? And then before that, it was 8 years before that, and they lost in the wild card round as well, against Baltimore, 2008. And then it was 7 years before that, that they went to the wild card round and lost to the Ravens again. So, the last time the Dolphins consistently made the playoffs, you're looking at 1990. I mean, the 90s. I mean, it was like when didn't they make it? I mean, you got 1990, 92, 94, 95, 97, 98, 99, 2000. Okay? So I was 6 years old. So that's why in my lifetime it just feels like, yeah, they make it there once a decade. And I look at this offensive stat, and we're talking about the best offenses in the league last year. And there's the Miami Dolphins. And the question is, what if the Dolphins would have had Tua the whole season? I mean, could you imagine how, like, what's their ceiling? Miami had 364 passing yards a game, and they had Tua, what, half the season? So I am intrigued by this Dolphins team moving forward for a couple of reasons. Okay. Number one, the fact that they may have one of the most underrated receivers, Jalen Waddle. And you're probably thinking Jalen Waddle's not underrated, but if he is a top 5, top 10 wide receiver, then he is underrated. Because if I told anyone to make a top 10 wide receiver list, I highly doubt Jalen Waddle's going to make the list. But he has very similar speed to Tyreek Hill, and he can do a lot of the same things. The fact that Miami has 2 of those is ridiculous. So I'll give you the team above Miami, San Francisco. They had 364 yards a game. Miami had 361. Detroit had 380 yards a game. Miami 361. Then you got Philadelphia 389. So you're still only what? 25 yards over, all the way at number 3. Then number 2, the Bills, 397 yards per game. And then the Chiefs, 413. So to sum up my rant here, 36 plus 13, 76, 79. The Chiefs averaged 79 more yards per game than the Dolphins did. And the Dolphins did not have their quarterback for almost half the season. So what does that say about what Miami is capable of? Now, we found out really quick that what's his name? Their head coach, Mike, Dolphins head coach. I swear it's like Mike McDaniel. Thank you. Okay, so Mike McDaniel, we know right off the bat this guy can coach. I mean, he looked like the real deal from the get-go. He's got the intangibles. I think he's going to be first season coach, takes the team into the playoffs. The fact that he kept the band together when they had Tua falling apart. And remember all the backlash he got for Tua playing in that Thursday night. Going, oh no, it was a back injury. Tua, his trainer, did he know? Did he not know? One thing we do know is that he had to step up on the podium and tell an entire nation that, I mean, you had people that don't even watch football that were absolutely invested in why he was on the field. And he didn't crumble. He took responsibility. He promoted that they get better in that area, specifically with the concussion protocol. And he continued to coach his team good, coach them strong, and get them ready to make enough to win enough games to close the season, to actually take this team that had Teddy Bridgewater and whoever else throwing passes, got him into the playoffs. And then not only that, but with a third string quarterback, they almost made enough plays to win that game. I mean, that would have been the end of the Buffalo hype train. It would have ended right there. 'Cause everybody's back on the Buffalo thing. Like once this season comes around, it's like, okay, Buffalo, because honestly, I was on the Buffalo train. They were doing things on defense and offense. Okay, until the 49ers started playing at the level that they were playing towards the end of the season, I thought Buffalo was going to win the Super Bowl. And when I found out that Skylar Thompson was going to be the quarterback in the playoff game in Buffalo, I didn't even give him a chance. Let me take a moment to remind you that Buffalo won that game by 3 points, 31-34. The Dolphins almost knocked off the Bills, and then the Bills, obviously, it gets confusing because then they get destroyed by the Bengals, and you're sitting here, you're wondering, were the Bengals just really good, or the Bills, were they playing really bad football? A lot of people agree that they just became too predictable. And if you stop the things that they were doing, they were not creative. And that's kind of what happens when you have a defensive coach and Sean McDermott is that that's not his specialty. He's not going to throw a new look at you every week. Once you understand what Buffalo does and you have enough tape, like you can go out there and do what the Bengals did. It's not like the Bengals had, the best defense in the league, but I did think that they had an underrated group that just got better. But not about Cincinnati right now. This is about Miami and establishing a real ceiling for this team. Because if your quarterback did well enough that you're able to finish seventh or eighth in, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, they were sixth. So Miami being sixth in the league in yards per game. What happens if Tua is playing on this team and he stays healthy for an entire 17 weeks? I'm curious. I mean, it's a very intriguing team because they did get better. They just brought in the best defensive mind in the league, in my opinion, and Vic Fangio. They bring in Jalen Ramsey. They drafted the corner in round 2, 51 overall, Cam Smith from South Carolina. He's gonna be good right away. He could have been a first rounder. This was there was a lot of talent in this draft, but I expect Miami, if their defense gets better, you don't have to be a genius to figure this out, but that means that Tua is going to have the ball more often and more opportunities for Tua. That's I think you could make an argument. I'm sure that it wouldn't be favorited on any of the books, but you could make an argument that if Tua stays healthy, Miami by the end of next year should have the best offense in the NFL. And I feel confident about that. Definitely top 5. Now, what's really interesting is that Miami could be, one of those teams if they can get their defense really playing. You're talking about top 10 defense and top 5 offense. That sounds like a playoff team to me. That sounds like a team that could actually make a playoff push. Now, it's the AFC. So there's a ton of talent, and it's almost like, well, who's going to have the better game in January? You could take, about 10 teams from the AFC and say they win the Super Bowl, and nobody would be like, no way, how? I don't remember in my lifetime ever having a conference loaded the way the AFC is this year. Football is just getting better every year, in my opinion. So the NFL has ranked it. Not to take any credit away from the game, the way the game used to be played with Jerome Bettis and the bus and the defense. I like that too. But we are just bringing in a lot of very talented athletes that are ready to play right away. So Miami on this list. So they're ranking offenses next year. Okay. Miami is not even ranked in the top 10. So I just don't know how. They didn't even write about the Dolphins because they only did the top 10. I wish they did all 32 teams and they could at least try to justify this. I would imagine maybe the number 10 spot, the Jets, maybe the Dolphins would have been there. Let's see if they elaborate on number 10 with the Jets. The Jets, Dolphins, and Vikings are all extremely close in slot 10 through 12 here. The small difference separating them is Aaron Rodgers, his ability to increase the effectiveness. The O-line, yeah, we get it. Rodgers is good. So, okay. I personally would put the Dolphins above the Jets as far as yards per game go for this next season because I feel like at this point we've seen what we need to see to know. So the Jets are number 10. Number 9, the Los Angeles Chargers. Um, they've brought in Kellen Moore. They drafted Quentin Johnson, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler. The question is, will this Kellen Moore transition, will it go smoothly? I don't know what kind of offense Kellen Moore likes to run, and I'm not sure if it's what the Chargers do, but we've seen, it's just weird. I feel like I haven't seen very often an offensive coordinator leave a team that is in their own way finding success. They did make it to the NFC divisional round to go be an offensive coordinator on another team that blew a 27-point lead in the wild card round. And it makes me wonder, is it because he sees something in the Chargers? I think it's probably because of that guy, Justin Herbert, if I had to take a shot at it. So from 2009 to 2022, they're ranked the second highest scoring unit in the NFL. I would imagine the Chiefs are number 1. 27.7 points per game. Yeah, but you can bend stats in all kinds of ways. Like I saw one yesterday that said nobody has more points than like the Cowboys in the last 3 years. And I was like, really? I mean, it was just like the stat of the day. It was something like that. Baltimore, number 8. New offensive coordinator in Todd Monken. They got Zay Flowers in the draft, one of the best wide receivers, OBJ. And there was the other wide receiver that they got, Nelson Aguilar. And the question is, Odell Beckham going to be healthy? I mean, this is like, it's like you took all the guys that could be just completely dominating the NFL, but you can't really, count your chickens until they hatch because all of these guys are fragile and can break. And you threw them on the same team. I mean, there's probably going to be real bets like who gets hurt first, Lamar Jackson or OBJ. I hope it doesn't happen, but that's my only kind of pullback with putting the Ravens this high is if you're telling me that you are actually betting on by the end of next season where these teams are going to fall, I wouldn't put the Ravens at 8. If you wanted to say no, just based on the guys suiting up, we put them at 8, then it's like, okay, but that's dumb. Why would you do it that way? Like, let's actually put this in to game-like situations. Will the Ravens be number 8 next year? Well, let's look at where they fell last year. The Ravens. If you take a guess in your head where they fall at. And man, oh my gosh. Tampa had a better offense than Baltimore last year. I know Lamar didn't play, but he played probably around the same amount as Tua. Exactly. That is light bulb. He played around the same amount. I'm going to see right now. Let me just put up Lamar Jackson stats 2022. Here we go. It'll tell me how many games he played right away. All right. So he played 2000 22 passing stats. See all. He played 12 games last season. 12. By the way, he played 12 games the year before that. He's only had a complete season one time. Every year he's missed either 1 or 5 games. He's missed 10 games in the last 2 seasons. And then, so he played 12 games last season. And let's see, 2022 stats. Because if Tua, I think he played around 12 games. So he played 13 games. So Tua played 1 more game than the Ravens. 1. And look at this jump. I mean, you got it doesn't number them. It's kind of annoying. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16th. Literally the bottom, it's closer to the middle, but it is the second half. It's on the wrong side of 15. And Tua played 1 more game and finished 6th. I get it that they got these weapons, but I don't know about that. I don't know if Odell Beckham can be a true number 1 receiver. Like, when I think about why it worked so well in the Rams, and it took a while, during the playoffs, he started to get better, but the Super Bowl is really when he was like, oh, Odell's playing really good. Cooper Kupp had one of the best seasons in wide receiver history. He had the triple crown: most touchdowns, most receiving yards, most catches. Somehow he got snubbed from the MVP because it'll always go to a quarterback. But you could have made a real argument Cooper Kupp should have been the MVP that year. And that kind of allowed defenses to fix their focus on Cooper Kupp. And then Odell could, get some stuff going. But you're telling me who's the best wide receiver? Who is the wide receiver number 1 on the Ravens? Is it Odell Beckham Jr.? Because if it is, I don't like that. I don't think that that's going to work very well. Zay Flowers, he's a rookie. A lot of potential, but he is a rookie. So putting him at 8, I just feel like we need to kind of relax a little bit with the Ravens. Looks great on paper, but we'll just have to wait and see. I would be really interested to revisit this by week 8 or week 9 and see where these teams ranked. Because even the Jets, like, it's going to take some time probably to really mesh. New system, new city, new town, new players, new coaches, new fans. Like, it's so much new. And you're throwing them in the top 10 over a head coach, and a quarterback with, their second year. That was Tua and Tyreek's first season. So you can make an argument, well, it worked for the Dolphins. It should work for the Jets. But more than not, it takes a little bit of time to get going. So, yeah, I definitely don't agree with this list so far. And then number 7, they put the Seahawks, which is really interesting because the Seahawks somehow land at number 7. And I do understand that they got into a lot of shootouts last season. But where's Detroit? I mean, Detroit finished 4th in offense. Like, if you go just total yards of the season, they were 3rd. Yards per game, they were 4th. Passing yards, they were 6th. Passing yards per game, they were like 7th. All these other teams are bouncing all around. And Detroit isn't. If you organize it by, okay, well, let's just do rushing football. Chicago Bears are number 1. They rushed for 3,014 yards. You know who's not even in the top? Oh my gosh, Kansas City's at like 20, 22. but Detroit is still here in the top 10. I just don't know how you go Seattle in this spot. I just hate this list. I really do. Because they added a really good wide receiver. Yeah, Detroit went off last season. I mean, it was one of the best offenses in the NFL. It goes Kansas City, Philadelphia, and Detroit. It's not my opinion. That is the way the stats read. That is the amount of yards they had. Kansas City was like 400 yards above second place. So there's no argument about that. But Philly and Detroit finished with less than 170 yards apart. And Detroit doesn't even get a nod at all. They don't even put him in the top 10. To me, it's just unbelievable. So what, they're predicting a big fall off, or does Detroit do they not get, how do they not get any spot in this list? I just rechecked it again to make sure. That is crazy to me. I cannot believe that. I'm definitely making my own list. And then look at the Chargers, Buffalo. They have Buffalo on this list. It's a little bit higher. All of these teams, according to last year, the line should be right here at number 3. And they don't even get on the freaking list. So number 7 is the Seahawks. The story is that they have more experience for tackles. The offensive line will be better. JSN is going to be immediately impactful. They already got Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. And, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, Geno Smith he definitely had some games where they were in a shootout, and he showed that he can put up some points. It's not about saying Seattle has some kind of terrible offense or anything like that. It's just, if you're going to put Seattle at 7, then you have to put Detroit, in the top 5. Number 6, San Francisco. This is another one that is just, I mean, is it only this low because we don't know if Brock Purdy's going to play? But if he does, they were scoring a ridiculous amount of points. And they have a defense, which means that they get a lot of opportunities. They always dominate time of possession. If you actually watch a 49ers game, you'll see that it seems like more than often the Niners have the ball. So Niners at 6, that to me is unbelievable. From Brock Purdy's first start, they had the most points per game. And it wasn't even close. And they actually had the highest point differential of any team last season. Which means they were destroying everybody. And here they are at 6, behind the Cowboys. In the Cowboys, let's see where they fell last season. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. They were 10th. So they put them 10th. So they passed up the 3rd most yards in Detroit. They put the 49ers, who were the 5th most yards, the Dolphins, who are the 6th most, they put Dallas, who's 10th. I mean, is this backwards day? Why? Because Brandon Cooks? Are you kidding me? Not hating on Brandon Cooks, but I feel like his prime years, I mean, he's always hurt as well. And they're not deep at receiver. If CeeDee Lamb, for any reason, can't play, Ezekiel Elliott's not on the team. Tony Pollard isn't probably, I don't know if he's going to be ready or not. I'm wondering who made this list. Number 4, the Bengals. I can get behind this one. Joe Burrow has the 2nd highest projected 2023 win share number of any QB in the NFL. Jamar Chase is wide receiver 3 in win share. And basically win share is just Like, what percentage of your win will we hold this player responsible? Like Tom Brady would always have a big win share because he's an X factor. And Joe Burrow has the second highest win share. Patrick Mahomes is definitely number one. Number three, that's when Buffalo comes in. The offensive line stood more spread apart than any O-line in the NFL last season. Per computer version, which helped give Josh Allen room to run, if they choose to do that again this season, they should have even better results because they added guards with better lateral movement, according to computer vision, addressing those positions by signing Connor McGovern and stealing Torrance, whom I, among others, mocked to the team in round one. And adding Latavius Murray, I like Latavius Murray. He's still got some ball in him. I got to see him up close last season. That dude can play. He's a professional too. He really treats football like a business. And then they got Dalton Kincaid. And yeah, it's hard to argue with these top three or these top four, but 5 through 10, I could probably there wasn't one on the second half from 5 to 10 that I agreed with. Number 2 is Philly. They got A.J. Brown. They got DeAndre Swift now. Rashad Penny. He gets hurt a lot. But really, the only thing you got to know, Jalen Hurts. The O-line is going to be good. You thought that it was possible that Kelsey was going to retire. No, he ends up not retiring. So, Eagles going back to the Super Bowl? Maybe. And then number 1, Kansas City. 8.7 projected win share. Just the offense. Number 2 is 8.5 with the Eagles. Tyreek Hill. Last season with Tyreek Hill exciting and Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquise Valdes-Scantling coming aboard. The Chiefs exiting, not exciting. Tyreek Hill exiting. The Chiefs relied more on the short passing game than they had in the past. And Patrick Mahomes proved he can adapt to any playing style, logging 31 touchdown passes on throws of 10 air yards or less, 12 more than anyone else in the NFL. Per Next Gen Stats, Kansas City, meanwhile, ranked first in the NFL in scoring and yards per play. I look forward to seeing what new players, alignments, and wrinkles Andy Reid folds into the offense this year, because he will. And will display that right away, week 1. With the departures of Juju Smith, Mecole Hardman, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, and rookie Rashee Rice to step up around pass-catching anchor Travis Kelce. Mecole Hardman. Oh, okay. So they're saying Juju Smith and Mecole Hardman, the departure of them is leaving more room for Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore to step up. Rashee Rice, he's a rookie. I'm going to have to look into that guy. But that's kind of the way the NFL has it all set up. And then number 10 on Pro Football is the Dallas Cowboys. That's a reasonable spot for them. Number 9, the Chargers. Number 8, the Niners. Number 7, the Ravens. Number 6, the Jets. Number 5, the Miami Dolphins. Now we got the Dolphins in a reasonable spot. I still think 49ers are a little low. I would definitely probably go. I would swap the Jets and the 49ers. I put the Niners at 6 and the Jets at 8. And then they got the Eagles at 3, Buffalo at 2, and Kansas City at number 1. I would not be surprised this year if Kansas City does not have the best offense at the end of the season. And it's not because I'm predicting that Kansas City is going to fall back or anything like that. I just have great respect for a lot of these teams offensively, and I feel like any one of them could step up and, take that title this year. If Burrow, Josh Allen, or Jalen Hurts, if any of those guys were the number one offense by the end of the season, it wouldn't be a big deal. Mahomes will still be probably top 3 if he's not 1, but yeah, it's definitely going to be just so exciting, especially because all these guys are playing each other. The Jaguars are playing the Chiefs week 3, I believe. No, I think it's week 2. Kansas City's schedule, and I'll end it on this. Kansas City's schedule this year is brutal, man. And this is the first time I'm going to say any type of prediction. I'm still going to hold off a little bit closer to the season to go division by division and rank wins and losses. But here's the one that I'm going to just throw out there. The Jacksonville Jaguars by the end of this season will be the number 1 seed in the NFL. Yeah. I said it. And I feel really confident about that. When I look at Kansas City's schedule, I see the Lions game right away. That's going to be a really tough game. Number 2, the Bears. I don't think it'll be a super hard game by any means, but I do think the Bears are expected to take a jump this season. And this game is like their Super Bowl. I think that they are going, because they're going to want to know, like, what are we capable of? I think that the Bears are going to show up for this game. I think the Chiefs win, but I also think the Bears show up, which means that they just, after playing the Lions, it's getting a little tougher here. They're playing the Vikings. The Vikings got a good offense. Then they got the Chargers, who you've seen their offense on all these lists. Then they got the Dolphins right after. So you go Justin Herbert. You've already had 1, 2, you've had 4 hard games by the time you get to week 5. Then you got the Raiders. You'll probably beat them. Then you play the Bills. That's another tough game. Then the Raiders again. Should be a lot easier. Oh wait, I'm going diagonal. Or I'm going straight down. It actually goes side to side. I thought the Chiefs played Jags week 2. It doesn't matter if I go up, down, sideways, in X's. This is a really tough schedule. So it goes Lions, Jaguars. Take your pick. I mean, both of these teams are the new guy on the block. Okay? And then they got Bears, Jets. Then Vikings, Broncos. The Broncos played the Chiefs really tough last season. Make your jokes about the Broncos, but with 4 minutes left in week 12, the Broncos were actually only down by 6 points. They had the ball in Kansas City territory. So that's how close that game was. And then week 17, with no coach on the field because they fired Nathaniel Hackett, the Broncos had the lead in the fourth quarter. I do expect Denver to win one of their games this year against the Chiefs. And then the Chargers. So it goes Broncos, Chargers, Broncos, Tua, Jalen Hurts, Raiders, Packers, whatever. But then the Bills, Patriots, Raiders, the Bengals, and the Chargers. So, I mean, Kansas City's not going to be able to win all these games. They're just not. It's too tough of a schedule. And the reason I think Jacksonville gets the number 1 seed is just because of the way the schedule lines up. Joe Burrow, he's got to play in a division with the Ravens, the Browns. They got the Ravens, the Browns, and the Steelers. But when you look at the AFC South, you got the Texans, the Colts, and the Titans, who are kind of going in the opposite way. It's probably the weakest division. No, it is the weakest division. Maybe you can make an argument that the NFC South with the Falcons and Tampa and Carolina. And Falcons, Tampa, Carolina. And who's the other team? The Saints. Maybe you can make an argument, but I still think the AFC South is the worst. So the way that the Jaguars played the Colts, the Chiefs, so they got a tough game, but then they go the Texans, the Falcons, then the Bills. See how they're separated? There's no back-to-back hard game. They got one in September, then you got one in October, then it's Colts, Saints, Steelers. Now you got the Niners. Now you got one in November, Titans, Texans again, Bengals. Here's your one in December, Browns, Ravens. That might be tough. Bucks, Panthers, Titans. Jacksonville's got 12 to 13 wins this year, and I think that will be what the first seed has. I don't think there will be a 15-1 team. So thank you guys for watching and supporting. As always, I will be going live again on Monday for Only Football, and you guys have been awesome. Thank you guys for tuning in. Sorry again for the later night than usual, but just wasn't feeling 100%, but I'm feeling better now. So thank you guys again, and I will see you guys next week. See ya!